I mean, you go to a bar and it's just screaming loud. The music is so loud you can't even hear yourself talk. You go to these concerts, you go to these environments where it's just intense.
Be manly and the legends of humanity. Welcome to the Fellowship of Honourable Men and Women Role Models for Boys and Men, because you have the power to be a man in all its glory.
All right. So one of the great comments that I have, and I experience it myself, is how do we cope with sensory overload in loud and crowded environments? I mean that's just crazy to me. I mean, I mean, you go to a bar and it's just screaming loud. The music is so loud you can't even hear yourself talk. You go to these concerts, you go to these environments where it's just intense. Um, so the first thing I tell people is like, listen, um, it's okay to remove yourself from those places. We as HSPs, we try to normalize ourselves, meaning that we try to fit in and be a part of the group. And but that sensory overload, meaning that the intensity of not just the sound, but the flashing lights, and the feeling of a crowd, where you've got maybe 100, 200, 300 or more people whose energy is just casting into the environment, can be overloading to us. And so to sit there and say you're enjoying that when you're truly not, it's okay to say, hey, that's just not my thing. Right? I get that. I know I do. I don't enjoy it. There's absolutely nothing normal about having music played so loud that you can't even hear yourself think. That's just crazy. That just so the question is why do they do it? Have you ever walked into a bar and if the music is playing so loud you can't even hear yourself think? So here's why they do it, right? Whether you're highly sensitive or not, because that loud music affects everybody. So how do you compensate for that? Well, you numb your nerves. Well, how do you numb your nerves in a bar? You drink. And so the whole marketing aspect of it is turn the music up, people will drink more. And it's the reality. It's absolutely real. Why do they do that? So that you will consume more alcohol, numb your nerves, and pretty soon you're laughing and you're joking, and the music's the same loudness, but you've consumed way too much alcohol. And so that's why in bars and in those concerts, whenever there's alcohol served, that's why they're doing it. But let's move into the groups where you're at a party or you're at a social gathering and everybody is talking over top of everybody. This is a really good one because what we're dealing with there is we're dealing with a lot of people that have lower sensitivity than we do. And so the way I describe it is that highly sensitive people, we have built into us this radar that casts out. It's a constant radar and it reaches wide and it scans in front of us, around us. It lets us, like a ship's radar, that lets us know that what's out there. And that's our environmental collection, is what it is. Our senses, our feelings, everything are picking up on multiple conversations, on multiple sounds, on all this finely tuned data that we're trying to collect. But these other people that don't have this high sensitivity, they don't have such a sophisticated radar. So they're not hearing the other people talk. They're not hearing what we're hearing. They're just concentrating on this one conversation, and they completely can ignore everything else around them because their sensitive system isn't as sensitive as ours. And so when we look around and we try to normalize, like, well, how can people do this when we can't? It's because they're different. They are much different than we are. And we've exposed ourselves to an environment that our radar is picking up on everything. Now, can we adjust that? I believe we can, right? And I'm working on that myself on a personal level. Have you ever seen the movie Man of Steel? Produced in 2013, I believe it was. And I think the main Superman character was Henry Cavill. And when he was a young boy, he was in the classroom and he was just starting to experience his X-ray vision. And his whole class was, his teacher, he was seeing right through them. And he got so scared and so freaked out that he ran to a broom closet and he hid himself into a broom closet, right? And I'm not saying that we're super people, but what I'm saying is that our sensitivity is like that. We pick up on all this stuff when all the rest of the class, they were seeing what he was seeing. And so we can focus on just what we want to focus on, but it takes practice. And that practice is called mindfulness, right? And a lot of people struggle with mindfulness. One of the techniques that I use to keep myself mindful is a candle flame. And so some people use deep breathing techniques, breathe it out, and that works for them, that's great, but I use a candle flame. And I focus on that candle flame because it's flickering and it's moving. And what I'm trying to focus on is the patterns of that candle flame. So people say that a flame never burns in the same direction twice. But if you focus on a candle flame and try to focus on the repetition or the patterns that it's creating, that is in itself creating mindfulness. That's all you're focusing on. Other thoughts don't come into your head. Other ideas, other noises, other things. That candle flame is your whole focus. So it's an exercise of mindfulness. So that when you go into a crowded environment, a noisy environment, you can focus on just what an individual is saying by ruling out everybody else. So it is possible, and I know that for a fact. And so it just needs a bit of practice and a bit of rehearsal. And so I encourage people, when it comes to sensory overload, work on your mindfulness. Study meditation, study some sort of mindful concentration, and learn or teach the mind to be focused on something, as opposed to having all these thoughts and ideas and everything else bombard you and overload you.
Before you go, you're invited to continue the Be Manly and the Legends of Humanity journey. Subscribe to our YouTube and become a patron, where you can become a courageous crusader, a wise warrior, a daring dynamo, and even an ascending avenger. Here you'll find all the tools to become a man in all its glory. We're honored to walk side by side with you on this extraordinary adventure. Together, we're unleashing the full power of manhood, creating a better world for everyone.